The radio cracked alive with panic. She's dead, hit confirmed, snipers down. The words echoed across the canyon like a death sentence. Petty Officer First Class Daniel Mercer of the SEAL team froze behind a fractured stone ridge, his breath trapped in his lungs. The mission had been precise, surgical. Infiltrate the mountain village, extract the intelligence asset, neutralize the insurgent commander overseeing regional attacks. It was supposed to be clean. But nothing in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan was ever clean. And now their Overwatch sniper, Chief Petty Officer Elena Vargas, was silent. Mercer clenched his rifle tighter. Valkyrie, respond. Valkyrie, this is Reaper -1. Do you copy? Static. Then gunfire. Heavy, synchronized bursts from elevated positions. They had walked into a funnel. The insurgents had let them in. And now they were closing the trap. Fall back. Move, shouted Lieutenant Harris, the team leader. Another explosion tore through the lower terrace of the village, showering dust and splintered wood into the air. The SEALs scrambled for cover, dragging their wounded communications specialist behind a crumbling mud wall. Mercer glanced toward the ridgeline, where Elena had positioned herself hours earlier before dawn. She had insisted on taking the highest perch, even though it meant crawling nearly 2 kilometers alone in freezing darkness. I've got you, she had said with a calm smile before they split. No one touches you. Now smoke curled from that ridge. And no more shots came from her rifle. She took a round, someone muttered. I saw the glint, counter-sniper. The lieutenant made a decision no leader ever wanted to make. We can't reach her. We're compromised. Exfil south. Mercer stared at him. Sir, she's still up there. She's gone, Harris snapped. We move. That's an order. And just like that, they left her. Not because they didn't care, but because the math of survival demanded it. The team broke contact, retreating down the ravine under relentless fire. Insurgents poured from hidden tunnels and stone houses. The radio filled with overlapping calls, coordinates, screams. Mercer felt something fracture inside him. Elena Vargas wasn't just their sniper. She was their shield. She had joined the Navy at 19, defying every expectation thrown at her. She had endured the cold indifference of instructors who didn't believe she belonged. She had outshot every man in her class. She had completed advanced sniper training with a record score. They used to joke that she didn't blink. But she did. She blinked when children crossed the street in a combat zone. She blinked when stray dogs wandered into crossfire. She blinked at humanity. And now they were leaving her behind. The team reached the southern extraction point, a dry riverbed flanked by jagged rock walls. But it wasn't empty. Dozens of armed insurgents were already positioned along the cliffs. They heard it as, Mercer realized. They knew. Machine gun fire rained down. The SEALs returned fire, but they were exposed. No cover, no elevation, they were going to die there. Lieutenant Harris keyed the radio with shaking hands. All units, last stand position. Hold until ammo depletion. Mercer's heart pounded so violently he thought it might burst through his vest. He imagined Elena lying on that ridge, blood soaking into stone. She's dead, the words repeated in his head. Then, a single rifle crack split the chaos. Sharp, precise. An insurgent machine gunner jerked backward and fell from the cliff. Another crack, another target dropped. The firing rhythm was unmistakable. Mercer's breath caught. No one else on Earth shot like that. The radio erupted. She's alive. On the ridgeline nearly 1,800 meters away, a silhouette shifted through the haze. Elena Vargas, bleeding, but breathing. She had been hit, her shoulder shattered by a grazing round, but not killed. And now, despite blood loss and fading vision, she was doing what she had promised. She was protecting them. Her rifle moved methodically. Wind correction, elevation, breathing through pain. Each shot bought seconds. Seconds turned into survival. Mercer and the team used the distraction to reposition behind a boulder cluster. Elena, fall back, Harris shouted into the comms. Static. She didn't respond, because she couldn't. Her radio antenna had snapped when she rolled to avoid the second round. She was alone, but she could see everything. The insurgents shifted focus toward her ridge. That was their mistake. They exposed themselves. One by one, she thinned their line. Until only one thread remained. A rocket-propelled grenade operator setting aim toward the SEALs. Cover. Elena's breathing faltered. Her vision tunneled. She had one round left. One. She adjusted for wind that barely touched the canyon floor but whipped along the ridge. She exhaled, and squeezed. The shot traveled nearly 2 kilometers. The RPG detonated mid-lift, engulfing the operator and scattering shrapnel into the insurgent line. Silence fell over the ravine. Reinforcements from a nearby Allied unit arrived minutes later, drawn by the chaos. The SEAL team survived, because of one final bullet. Mercer stared up at the ridge. But the silhouette was gone. They found her at dusk. Curled beside her rifle, unconscious, pulse faint but present. She had tied her own tourniquet using a torn strip from her undershirt. She had fired her last shot. And then she had collapsed. The medevac lifted her under fading orange light. For weeks, the team waited outside sterile hospital walls. Doctors said the bullet had narrowly missed her artery. But the damage to her shoulder would end her field career. When she woke, Mercer was the first face she saw. "You left," she whispered with a faint smile. He swallowed hard. "We thought you were gone." She nodded slowly. "Good. Means you moved." Tears burned in his eyes. "You saved us." She didn't answer. Because saving them wasn't heroism to her. It was duty. Months later, during the formal commendation ceremony, the citation described her actions in careful, measured language. Exceptional valor under fire, extraordinary marksmanship, selfless courage, but none of it captured the moment they heard that first rifle crack after believing she was dead. None of it captured the way Hope felt when it returned. Elena Vargas never returned to active sniper duty. The injury prevented her from maintaining stability at long ranges. But she refused retirement. Instead, she became an instructor. She trained the next generation of marksmen. And every class heard the same words. "Your last shot is not about accuracy. It's about responsibility." Years passed. Mercer eventually led his own team. And every time he positioned an Overwatch sniper, he remembered the ridge. The smoke, the silence, and the final shot that saved them. Because sometimes, the difference between life and death isn't a squad. It isn't air support, it isn't reinforcements. Sometimes, it's one warrior who refuses to quit. And somewhere out there, in every sniper who steadies their breathing before squeezing the trigger. Her legacy lives on.